Hello YTPC, Ethan, Parsimonious Piper here. Today we don't really have a parsimonious pipe. Today we have a little chat session about engineering versus grain. But first, in the crappiest pipe I own, a Lucerne, I guess it's a brandy egg shape, I'm smoking a rather good blend. And that is Daughters and Ryan's Ramback. The pipe. Easily the worst smoker I have. When I got this pipe, I couldn't even get a pipe cleaner through the stem, disassembled, much less through the entire thing. Had to drill it out from both ends. Still has a tight draw. Yeah. Not really impressed with the manufacturer of the pipe. Well, Lucerne, you ever heard of them? Some Chinese pecan wood or something I picked up at a strip mall. I think I used a tobacco shop in Sevierville, Tennessee. But with that tight draw, it does pretty well with a blend like Daughters and Ryan's Ramback. If you've had DNR blends, they come very dry. Now, normally I would agree with Brad the Bearded Piper that it's better to pack too loose than to pack too tight. The exception would be for shag cuts and for super dry blends. You can pack a super dry blend very tightly. That will make it slow down. I don't have any problems with the heat. Get lots of flavor. So that would be the one exception. Of course, if you preferred, you could always rehydrate your DNR blends, but I don't. I smoke them dry. Just pack them tight. So today's topic is going to be just a brief discussion of is the emphasis that we place on engineering in conflict with the emphasis that we place on pretty, on grain. I'm going to tell you up front, I think the answer to that is no, as long as we are actually prioritizing smokability and the engineering in our purchases to begin with. I had one of my readers leave this comment. I said, I'm struggling to accept that the grain is more important than the craftsmanship. We'll come back to that. After all, it's a pattern on wood. A flame grain doesn't ensure a better smoke. And just because it's a contrast line pattern, it doesn't mean it's more special than a briar with no pronounced pattern. I give more value to the labor. I think this pipe is nice the way it is. It was a pipe that had completely nondescript grain. I like to celebrate the art of the pipe making itself more than the art of wood. Well, that comment's kind of end-capped by a couple of things. One, right up front, I'm struggling to accept that the grain is more important than the craftsmanship. I never said that. I certainly don't believe it. I don't believe that the grain is more important than the craftsmanship. I think in many cases it's inseparable from the craftsmanship. Now, if you have a block of briar where you can't find any grain to just really highlight with a particular shape, rusticate it, sandblast it, do something different with it, carve it. But the appreciation of the grain certainly doesn't have to take precedence and shouldn't take precedence over the engineering. I far prefer a pipe that isn't necessarily pretty. This isn't bad to look at. It's poorly engineered. No, I don't value that over the engineering. It's a horrible smoking pipe, except for some shags and some very dry blends. So first of all, that I don't know anybody who really appreciates grain over engineering, because you can take a pretty pipe home and if it doesn't smoke well, you're not going to smoke it. You may not admit that you've made a bad purchase, but you know you have. Now that last statement in there, I like to celebrate the art of the pipe making itself more than the art of wood. Well, the art of pipe making is the art of wood. Let's explore. I picked a pair of pipes. A few pair of pipes. To highlight the differences that you will see and why some of us do value a pipe with pretty grain. Here's the first pair. Now these two Pipe by Lee billiards are nearly identical in construction. They're the same length, the same height, the same ratio of the height of the bowl to the height of the stummel, or the length of the stummel. The bowl diameters are the same. These are as close to identical pipes as you can get. But if you look on the back side of this 2-star pipe, what you see is just a mush. Now, does that make the pipe smoke any worse? No, of course not. But that has got lovely flame grain all around. That straight grain pattern just, it encircles the bowl. It's beautiful. It's going to get a higher grade from most people than the mushy grain pipe. Here's another set that's another good example. Again, I've chosen 2 Bulldogs. Now they are from different eras. You'll notice one is a 5-star, one is a 5-point star, the other's a 7-point star. We have a 2-star and a 3-star here. You can see the grain on that 2-star. There is nothing spectacular about it. But if you pull in close and look at the 3-star, you can see that the carver set the briar so that there's straight grain all along the bottom and bird's eye all around the middle. Probably the most pronounced example I have is these 2 Bulldogs. Again, a 2 and 3-star. These are both from the same era. You can see the 2-star doesn't have any consistent pattern of grain. Does that mean it smokes worse? Nope. It is a fantastic smoking pipe. But if you look at the 3-star, and I have highlighted this one in a separate video, this pattern of straight grain alternated with bird's eye goes all the way around the pipe. Alternating square panels are straight grain, bird's eye, straight grain, bird's eye. The top of the pipe is exactly the same thing. It's straight grain right down the center and bird's eye to one side, straight grain to the other. Whoever set this pipe up and carved it did a masterful job of aligning the shape of the pipe to the grain of the block. That simply makes it, for most people, a more valuable, more desirable pipe. Well, those are the last of the examples where I'm going to show side by side, but to say it in general, yes, the emphasis should be placed on the engineering of the pipe. You know, is the draft hole straight? Is it centered? Is it not blocked to where you have to drill it out? Things like the fanning of the end of the draft hole at the bit. Attention to detail for things like that. The shape of the bit. Is it comfortable in your mouth? Can you clench it? the weight of the pipe, all of these things should be more important than just the grain. But all other things being equal, you look at higher end artisan pipe carvers, and the pipes that they carve very frequently follow the grain of the block. They choose the shape based on what they find in the block. This happens over and over again. It's why some of your better artisan carvers, and I'm not talking your very high end, just the the 2,000 and 3,000 J. Allen level carvers. I'm talking about your $200 to $400 artisan pipes. Those guys are looking at the grain, and they are following that grain to create the pipe. Here's an example of one from my factory pipes. Look at the side of this Rhodesian. That straight grain goes all the way around the bowl. Now, look at the top. The top is just a complete sea of bird's eye. That's a very well executed Rhodesian. Does it smoke any better than the exact same shaped Rhodesian without that pretty grain? Nope. But if you hear me talking about grain, yeah, you can assume it's a good smoker, because I'll talk about a bad smoker first. I won't even care if it's pretty. But that's just a fantastic example. Here's another one. This is a Danish freehand. On both sides of the pipe, that grain just radiates right along the edge of the pipe. Did a beautiful job. Here's another freehand, this one from Ron Smith. And you can see that it's an egg shape, and he followed the grain pattern right down the stem, into the turn, into the transition, straight back up into the bowl. Beautiful job. Last but not least is a J. Mouton Bulldog. And you'll see the bottom of the pipe is sandblasted, and then the outside edge of the rim is surrounded by this straight grain that sweeps up from the bead lines to the rim. The rim itself is just a ton of tightly packed bird's eye. Now, does that pretty presentation make that Mouton Bulldog smoke any better than any of my other Bulldogs? Nope. But Jay's execution does. And he waited to find a block where he could do a Bulldog for me that had that specification. Straight grain along the sides, bird's eye on the top. Now, if he had just taken any block he wanted and carved that exact same shape, yes, it would have smoked just as well. But I wouldn't have paid as much for it. Because what I wanted was both. And there's no reason that you can't have both. Now, if your budget doesn't allow you to buy artisan pipes, and mine doesn't, I buy them, that was my first commission. And I won't be doing that more than once a year, if that. If your budget doesn't allow that, there is absolutely nothing wrong. In fact, there's a lot right with pipes at the lower end, like the Rossies. Everybody talks about Rossi because basically you're getting Savinelli engineering with just a lesser finish. Well, who cares? If you're only concerned with how a pipe smokes, it doesn't matter what block you carve it from. But if, like me, you view a pipe as both functional and beautiful, I like to see pretty grain. I like to see a shape that flows along with the grain. One of the most stunning examples that I've seen was the pipe that David Huber won the West Coast show with a few years ago. And if you hunt for David's pipes on smokingpipes.com, you'll find it. It was a snail that he did. His use of the grain in bringing out that shape was stunning. Now, you say, yeah, but is that smokable? Well, it's a David Huber pipe, and knowing the guy personally, yes, I can guarantee you it's smokable. He doesn't carve stuff that you can't smoke. Now, would I? No. No. Piece of art like that, I'd be afraid to smoke it. But would it smoke well? I can guarantee you it would. The engineering for David does come first. So I hope that at least explains for you why some of us talk about the grain on a pipe. Because for many of us, the engineering's a given. With modern factory pipes, the consistency from pipe to pipe is, well, it's just about automatic. You know, if you like the way a Savinelli smokes, chances are good you can buy any Savinelli sight unseen off the internet and you're going to like the way it smokes. Now, do you occasionally get one that's bad? Yeah, of course. That's what happens with factory pipes. Even factory pipes that are handmade, there isn't a 100% consistency from one pipe to the next. But nowadays, most of your name brand pipes, you're not worried so much about engineering. You know the pipe is going to smoke well. The question then becomes, do you like the way it looks? Well, some of us do put a little bit of emphasis. Now, I buy old pipes. I don't have a lot of choice there. I find what I can find, and some of them are pretty, some of them are stunning. Some of them are not. They're just workhorses, but they smoke just as well as the pretty ones. So, take what you will from that. I'm not a pipe expert, just telling you what I observe, and I observe it among new pipe smokers, and I observe the same thing among old pipe smokers. So, yeah, there is no conflict between engineering and beauty or grain. Some of your best carvers incorporate both in every pipe. With that, folks, it is a beautiful North Carolina afternoon, and I have rambled long enough. Light something you like. Do it in a better pipe than this. Enjoy your afternoon.